because I believe in growth and innovation and raising living standards, I call myself an innovationist. Our organization is called the Center for Political Innovation. And what we advocate, our 4-point plan to defeat the imperialists and rebuild America with a government of action that fights for working families, our 4-point plan is very much what around the world would be considered a socialist program. But in America, socialism and communism and leftism have all become synonymous with wokeism. And wokeism is about degrowth and anti-humanism and pessimism. And so we don't want to associate ourselves with that. Socialist countries build power plants. Countries that oppose imperialism raise people up out of poverty. So we are advocates of economic growth, right? And all the major communist groups in the United States are working for the big monopolies. The Communist Party wants to make sure that Kamala Harris becomes president. The Party of Socialism and Liberation. We've just published a great critique of them on our website. They're the big socialist communist group. They're the most visible one. They advocate dismantling the U.S. power grid. And the scary thing is they may call themselves a socialist party when they say they want to get rid of all fossil fuels, electricity in the United States. And I mean, that's nuts. But on top of that, Joe Biden is already doing it. And, it's weird. John Stossel is somebody that I disagree with on many, many points, that he just made this great video. It's not enough to get rid of coal power. It is not enough to get rid of other fossil fuel-based power, oil, etc. Joe Biden right now is trying to dismantle hydroelectrical power. Did you know this? They're actually on the verge of dismantling hydroelectrical power stations in the United States. This blows my mind. And this video, this piece by John Stossel, I disagree with a lot of what John Stossel says, but on this one, he is right on. And I watched this and I seethed with anger. Apparently, hydroelectric power isn't okay, according to liberals. They're having big mobilizations, and they've got Native Americans that they're putting out there to save the fish. Can you believe this? We can't even have hydroelectrical power anymore. Coal power, no. Oil power, no. Nuclear power, absolutely not. Now they want to get rid of hydroelectrical power. And this is what Party for Socialism and Liberation and the Communist Party want us to have. Look at this.
Fossil fuels across the globe.
Instead of using fossil fuels, we're told we should use what they call clean energy. Wind, solar, and hydropower. Hydro is the most reliable because unlike wind and solar, water power is steady. But now, politicians want to destroy dams and their hydropower.
The federal government recommending swift action on the lower Snake River dams.
Removing 4 dams.
We need to breach those dams, and we need to do it now. Now's the time. Our fish are on the line.
Oh, look, a Native American said it. If you don't agree with that, you're racist. Native Americans are beautiful, primitive people who don't believe in electricity. They're beautiful, noble savages. And look, a beautiful, noble savage is out there saying, oh, get rid of the power plant. We have to do it. Let me let you in on a little secret, folks. When I was in high school, I spent a couple weeks out on a Native American reservation. You know what? Every Native American had electricity in their home. And you know what? A lot of the Native Americans out there in North Dakota on the reservation, a lot of them served in the U.S. military. And a lot of them were evangelical Christians. Native Americans, this is one thing that pisses me off, right? So many leftists have been like brainwashed, right? That they would see this image, right, of the Native American there, right? They would see the Native American protester, right? Oh, look, there's Native Americans. And they just start doing this weird dances with wolves. Oh, my God, these beautiful, primitive people. We can't disagree with them. Are you disagreeing with the sacred elder? And it's really fucking racist. The majority of people around the world, in South America and Central America and in the United States of indigenous heritage, want electricity. This is, the liberals, they have developed a mechanism for just, they find some Native American person in a costume and put them up there. And then all like these rich white people have this like fantasy of like, oh yes, I want to be in dances with wolves. I'm a good white person, unlike this evil civilization I live in. Yes, I just want peace to run with the buffalo. And it is this sick thing. It is this sick primitivist thing. You know, I mean, and it's really offensive. I believe Native Americans have the right to have electricity in their homes. And I don't think that, you know, that the Hollywood fantasy of noble savages that keep the Hollywood fantasy of noble savages that keep that should be used to keep people in poverty. And anyway, let's continue.
Our fish are on the line.
Activists claim the dams threaten the Snake River. They call it
the most endangered river in this country
because they say the dams are
decimating the salmon population.
It's true that pregnant fish need to swim upriver to have their babies. And now there are dams in the way. But still, today, most fish pass. How?
Well, there are ladders on the dams that allow passage.
Todd Myers of the Washington Policy Center has worked for decades on salmon recovery. Recovery includes
new innovative surface passage structures for fish
and fish ladders that help fish get past the dams.
We have made so much progress that we can have salmon recovery and the electricity it provides.
But using the word recover makes it sound like there was this horrible decimation.
There was.
When dams were first built without the innovations that keep fish away from the turbines, lots of salmon were killed. But that's no longer true. Today,
between 96 and 98% of the salmon successfully pass each dam, which is why the federal scientific agencies say that salmon will recover with the dams in place.
Yeah, see, it's not really about the damn fish, okay? It's not about the fish. It's about degrowth. They think the way to save the U.S. economy is to reduce consumption and make us all poorer and to reduce the population. It has nothing to do with the fish, and it has nothing to do with global warming and fossil fuels. It's just about degrowth. These people are satanic, evil Malthusians. They don't care about fish. They don't care about, it's not about that. They are anti-human. This is a satanic cult, right? The degrowth fascists that are trying to restart the capitalist system by forcibly degrowing, by dismantling the power grid, by driving people into poverty, right? That's the case, right? These people are anti-growth. It's not about fish. It's not about climate change. It's about opposing humanity. They are anti-human.
Media still repeat the activist claims.
The salmon population near extinction.
That's simply not true. All you have to do is to go and look at the actual population numbers to know that that's absurd.
Here they are. Although the first dams did kill lots of salmon, in recent years, salmon numbers have been higher than they were in the 80s or 90s. But somehow, government media claim
salmon numbers are so low that tribal biologists say some species have reached a quasi-extinction threshold.
They make these claims because they know people will believe them.
Just sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even need to check it. They just absolutely believe it.
Yeah, I think if there was a shortage of salmon, we'd all be noticing that at the grocery store.
Extinction of salmon are unacceptable.
They've never been closer to extinction than they are today.
People don't want to believe that their favorite environment.
Salmon are going to go extinct. Seriously. Salmon. You really believe that?
Environmental group is dishonest.
We don't, but some are. They raise money by scaring people, even when their fear-mongering is totally wrong. In 1999, environmental groups took out this ad saying salmon will be extinct by 2017.
Whoops.
And yet, 2015, 2016, 2017, populations were higher than in 1999.
Did the environmentalists apologize?
No, they repeat almost the exact same arguments today. They just changed the dates.
We invited 10 activist groups that want to destroy the dams to come here and defend their claims about salmon going extinct. Not one would agree. And I guess I understand why, because they've already convinced the public.
I calling from France.
Calling in from France, Australia, about the Snake River Dam?
I'm calling from Australia.
I'm calling from São Paulo, Brazil.
New York.
Nashville, Tennessee.
In the court of public opinion, they're winning.
We're up against a lot. It's very difficult.
It's so dumb. We waste billions on pointless things like environmental subsidies that mostly help rich people. And now politicians want to waste billions destroying dams?
Environmental laws. Let you know about this, right? Obviously, the Clean Air Act made a great difference. And, I remember the Cleveland, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. Environmentalism, to some degree or other, is necessary, right? Because if you just let every corporation dump and all of that, we all have to breathe the air, we all have to drink the water that might get polluted. You need environmental legislation to some degree or other. However, one dirty little secret about environmental laws that nobody ever wants to acknowledge, they never, if you watch those kids' movies that we all watch, if you watch Fern Gully and you watch all those, one thing they never tell you is that the people who get to write the environmental laws are the biggest corporations, right? Oil in the United States, for example, oil, right, is run by 4 companies: ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron. And ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron, in case you didn't know that, they are ultra monopolies in oil, and they hate little oil companies. And so they get together and they write the environmental laws to fuck over the small oil companies. And the fracking cowboys, the frackers, those Noble Energy, the Koch brothers, those are little oil companies. And ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron have done everything they can to write the environmental laws in a way that will put little oil out of business and make sure that big oil has dominance. The monopolies get to write the rules. And that's a dirty little secret about environmentalism that no one wants to talk about. And if you look at who pays for, who funds the environmental movement, the World Wildlife Federation was started by the British royal family, right? You look at who funds the Sierra Club. You look at who funds the big environmental movement. Who funds them? The big monopolies, because they're out there lobbying so that they get to write the rules and put small businesses out of business. And who else do they want to put out of business? Venezuela and Iran and Iraq and all the other countries. I mean, I'm telling you, the idea that we should shut down hydroelectrical power plants to save fish when fish aren't even dying, that right there should tell you something is really, really wrong. Something is really, really wrong with this so-called environmental movement. It's got nothing to do with fighting for the working class and fighting against big corporations. It's the big corporations mobilizing for the ability to write the laws and implement their satanic degrowth agenda.
There is no viable path that can allow us to keep the dams in place.
We keep doing dumb things. We put money into places where it doesn't have an environmental impact. And then we wonder 10, 20, 30 years why we haven't made any environmental progress.
They're willing to tear down these dams even though they generate tons of clean electricity.
Almost the same amount as all of the wind and solar turbines in Washington State. Imagine if I told the environmental community, we need to tear down every wind turbine and every solar panel in the state. They would lose their minds, but that's essentially what they're advocating by tearing down the Snake River dams.
They say just build more wind turbines.
The problem is that several times a year, there's no wind.
Things are heating up, and it's only going to get hotter from here.
We saw this recently when we had a hot streak, and the wind disappeared for 3 or 4 days. So you could build 10 times as many wind turbines, but if there's no wind, there's no electricity. Hydro, you can turn on and off whenever it's needed. So destroying hydro and replacing it with wind makes absolutely no sense. We'll do serious damage to our electrical grid for a tiny benefit to salmon. And yet they're willing to pay all of those costs.
It's not their money.
Exactly. If you want to spend $35 billion on salmon, there's lots of things we can do that would have a real impact.
Like
seals and sea lions.
They eat lots of salmon.
The Washington Academy of Sciences says that unless we reduce the populations, we will not recover salmon.
People used to hunt the sea lions.
Yeah, and that's why the populations are higher today than they were 200 years ago.
The public doesn't want you shooting sea lions.
That's exactly right.
So instead, politicians push destroying dams.
Because it's sexy and dramatic, it sells. It's more about feeling good than environmental results.
I want to tell you all a story. Do you know what the largest hydroelectrical power plant in the world is? I'm going to show you video of the largest hydroelectrical power plant in the world. This is the Three Gorges Dam, built by the Chinese Communist Party. The largest hydroelectrical power plant in the world. This is the elevator for ships, so that ships don't go over the dam. They can be transported. It's like an elevator for ships so they can get through the Three Gorges Dam. Look at that. That is what the Chinese Communist Party built. China, you go back 60 years, there was barely any electrification in the country. But China has been fully electrified, and 800 million people have been lifted out of poverty by the Chinese Communist Party. When the British Empire and Wall Street was running China, they were an impoverished country without electrification. And this is what communism did. This is what socialism and the centrally planned economy of China did. Look at that. The Chinese Communist Party built the world's largest hydroelectrical power plant. And you know who tried to stop them? The stupid environmentalists, the United Nations environmental organizations. They said, no, communists, you can't build power plants. China's got to stay unelectrified. It's bad for Mother Earth. And the Chinese Communist Party, Deng Xiaoping, said, screw you, we're raising our people out of poverty. Poverty is not socialism. To be rich is glorious, and they built it. Yeah. The Chinese Communist Party built the world's largest hydroelectrical power facility. And in Venezuela, you will find a number of hydroelectrical power plants that were built by the Chinese Communist Party. And in Brazil, Lula da Silva teamed up with the Chinese Communist Party to electrify Brazil. There were whole sections of Brazil that didn't have electricity until Lula da Silva, the socialist president, teamed up with the Chinese Communist Party and built hydroelectrical power plants. Right? I mean, I'm just telling you, right? Hydroelectrical power is a pretty good thing, and it's about degrowth. We've got to oppose degrowth. You will not solve the problems of the world by making the world poorer. You won't do it. You will not solve the problems of the world economy by making everyone poorer. And the idea that humans are the problem, that humans are a cancer on the planet, humans are no good, that is a recipe for depression. That is a recipe for drug addiction. That is a recipe for suicide. And it's also a recipe for genocide. If the pie is only this big, the only way your slice can get any bigger is cutting into someone else's. And no one ever thinks their slice of the pie is too big. And manipulating workers to fight against each other, manipulating one race against another, one group against another. That is how fascism is carried out. And Nazi Germany, that's what they did. They created a slave labor underclass. They forcibly broke the unions. And we know what that ultimately resulted in now, don't we? Right? That degrowth, trying to roll the wheels of history backward, is the definition of evil. And it is in the interest of all humanity for living standards to go up. Growth is not bad. Humanity is not bad. But we need a rationally planned economy. So this growth happens in a strategic way and can continue. But growth is not bad. I am pro-growth, and you should be pro-growth also. And that's really what this election is about. And if you look at it very closely, Donald Trump represents the pro-growth faction, and Kamala Harris represents the anti-growth faction. Kamala Harris wants to reduce the population and drive down living standards and dismantle the power grid. And Donald Trump wants the population to go up and wants the living standards to go up so that he and his lower level capitalist friends can make a lot of money. And what the lower level capitalists need to understand is that only with a rationally organized economy, with a government of action to break the power of the big monopolies, only with a government of action, an anti-monopoly coalition, taking control of the major centers of economic power and defeating the big monopolies, only then can we have the sustained long-term economic growth that we need. Right? That free markets and privatizations are not going to do it. They're not going to do it. The only way we can ultimately have long-term economic growth is if society takes control of the major means of production, which conveniently the big monopolies have already centralized into their hands. Well, now we need society as a whole to take control of the big monopolies, take control of the major oil companies, take control of the major coal and natural gas companies, take control of the banking system, and strategically lend money and build. We need a government of action that fights for working families, and we need to build. We need to build. It is time to build, folks. And